I want to create a character based on a profession that we play in Darkmaster that we created for that, called an Eldritch Warrior. And to do that then, I'm going to use Bob's RMU game system. I'm going to create a custom spell list, custom culture, custom profession, put them all together and create the character. Also, as we do that, we'll sprinkle in some tips that Bob drew my attention to. Right, first thing to do is to create a folder in the items so that we can extract all the compendium pack content and pop it into that folder. Reason for that is because we're going to make some changes and we don't really want to be changing the compendium pack content. If you can even do that, just make your own copy of these and then you can duplicate those and change them to your heart's content. Right, that's imported, and now what we need to do is let's make a culture. So go to cultures, then you right hand click and then you duplicate, and then you can open it up, rename it, and then click change whatever you want to do for your new culture. Just keep an eye on the DP cost, keep it at 80 so it's balanced. This one here is just really a kind of swords and sorcery type build, so we're going to stress those areas. Right, well that one's done. So there we have our mystic culture. Right, so next thing is to actually start our profession. We'll base it off a sorcerer called Eldritch Warrior, so just duplicate the sorcerer and then we'll create this as a Eldritch Warrior. However, to be able to do this, we're going to need spell lists. So at the moment, I'm just going to give this one 3 spell lists. That's a recent addition by Bob. But I want to be able to put some spells. So first of all, I'm going to have to import the spell lore compendium back into the RMU content like we did earlier. That means we can now make copies of spells. Into the items, into any spells that we want to use to clone. So we're going to go into Essence, going to go into the base magician, we're going to grab our own copy of Fire Lore, duplicate that, give it a new name. This is Eldritch Fire. And then that's still linked to a magician, so we've got to go into the spell user, into Eldritch Warrior, and just drag and drop it in there to now make that a base list for the Eldritch Warrior. Okay, that's that one done. Now go across to a closed one. We're going to go and grab Lofty Bridge, do the same thing, duplicate that, open it up, give it a name. This one is Eldritch Body. Notice there that it's a closed essence, so I'm going to go back into the profession, back into Eldritch Warrior, drop them on top. That's now the base list for the Eldritch Warrior. And there's 2 of our lists. This next list is going to be our own base list, a bespoke one for the Eldritch Warrior. So create yourself a folder where the spell's going to go. And then what we need now is going to create a new item, and the type is going to be of a spell list. And then give it a name. The spell list is Eldritch Blades. And then create that item. Up comes this dialog box. To add a spell, just click on the plus spell button. And you have this one. This is a level 1 spell. I'm just going to paste the description from a PDF off screen here. Give it a name, which is Eldritch Blade for this first one. And these spell types, you can change these. It will change what's available in the different parameters. I hopefully know a lot more than I do about those things. Just make this a bit more RMU-like, so the clumsy range, fumble range. And then that's that first one done. Now let's create a second one for a second level spell. This one is Blade Aura. Pop the description in. And then we'll change some of these spell parameters down the bottom here. Oh, actually, hang on. Let's make this Imperial. And then we'll change it to 1 hour per level for the duration. And it happens onto one object, a sword in this case. That's that one done. Then our level 3 spell, that is Summon Blade. Pop the spell description in, where you can summon it from very far away. In this case, we'll do it 100 foot for level. And that should do for that one. And our level 4 spell was Blade of Fury. Pop the spell description in. It is as well, this is an instantaneous spell, so you can just click that spell modifiers box and pop that in there. Oh, hang on, yeah, let's change this to an OB. And half action? No, just be like 2 AP actions or like that. That could be equivalent of a half action. Right, and now we'll pop instantaneous in there. Just to show you, if you have elemental, you can go into the attack spells and you can choose the attack table, the size adjustment, what spell you want to use for this, sorry, what skill you want to use for this. Okay, but in this case it's not actually, it's just a normal eye spell, whatever that is. So this is going to be for one object, and the range I believe is touch. There we go, there's our 4th level spell. And that's our spell list, our bespoke spell list for Eldritch Blades. So that needs to be now linked to our Eldritch Warrior. So we'll go down, drag and drop like we did previously. And there's another base spell list. And that's us done. Well, for spell lists anyway. What we need to do now is go into Eldritch Warrior and start changing our skill costs. Keep an eye on aptitude, so make the combat training a bit easier. Spell learning or spell casting a little bit harder. And this then will set us up so that we've got the template for our Eldritch Warrior. Again, like I say, just keep an eye on aptitude at the top there. Make sure that comes at 0. So there we go. We'll finish this up. Just choosing some professional skills. Just choose whatever of your 15 skills that you want. And that's done. So what now? Let's create a character based on all of this new stuff that we've done. The spells, the cultures, the profession. So create this one here. We'll call this one Volta. That's who it was based off. Create that character, and now got a profession, culture, so you need to drag these across. So go into the items, grab the mystic culture, drop that in. Then we now need the well, it's already human, we'll keep the human, so we want really now the actual profession, the Eldritch Warrior. Drag that on. So this is now using our Eldritch Warrior with the mystic, and we can now start creating our character. Now, I'm sure you've got many videos on the internet which show you how to do a lot of creating characters on RMU. Just going to draw your attention to a few of the bits that Bob drew my attention to. So the first one here is once you've done your stat swaps, if you wish, you can undo those just by going down to the double-headed arrow and clicking on them, and that will then undo it. It will appear in chat though, so the GM will be aware. Yeah, you can undo those swaps. Also, you can uncheck stats generated and be able to re-roll your stats again. However, the GM can only do that. The player can't do that. You can change the number of swaps by going into Configure Settings and then scrolling down from Rolemaster Unified Core all the way down to Optional Stat Swaps, whatever it's called. Optional Allowed Stat Swaps. Now, obviously, that can be generated by the power level to give you more swaps, or the GM could just use the slider there and give you unlimited swaps. If you want to change the power level, just go there, character power level, and change it in the options. So you click on a stat to boost it, and you can then choose your 3 options. But also, what I wanted to point out was that when you click on the boost stat, you can actually look down underneath it. It says other options available, and will tell you what you could do with other stats. So in this case, you could replace the highest temporary stat, replace the second highest temporary, replace potentials, and it lists the stats that could be available on. We'll make 2 stat game rolls. One thing I wanted to make clear was that when you make stat game rolls, once you commit to them, you have to actually do those stat game rolls. One other thing he wanted to talk about, which I haven't pictured in the footage here, is that if your stat temp was lower than its potential, but raising that temp further wouldn't increase the stat bonus, you'll get a little warning icon appear next to the temporary stat. If you hover over that, little bubble help will explain that there's no further benefit in boosting that temporary, because the potential bonus equals the current temp bonus. Also, you just want to reiterate, remember there's no stat gains when you're moving from level 0 to level 1. Alright, what's next? Yeah, so when you click on next to go into the culture side of the culture skills, he'd like to let you know that, which I even didn't spot this, that you can use the drop down list here. So by default it's category skill and what choices you got to make, but also you can choose what category skills you've already got. This is the all, and then what's been assigned. But the default is the actual choices. And he says just make sure that it says 1 of 1, 7 of 7. Make sure they all say 0 at the end of it. Otherwise, it won't let you move through to the next stage, which would be professional skills. The rest of the character creation really is just checking boxes, clicking on them. So you've got the professional skills. Then after that, you've got to choose your knacks. And one thing he'd like to make clear is that for combat training, there is a degree of you have to choose what you want and then tick the checkbox, because it can be hard to change that later on. That's why that particular step is in there. One great little addition that Bob made recently, one that I've fallen foul of, if you have a fighter type character, the GM can actually unlock it using this padlock symbol and go in and just change the realm for you and then lock it back up again, which I think was a really good addition. Okay, so you've done the initial character creation, set everything up, your professional skills, your cultural skills, all that. What you need to do now is think about going from level 0 to level 1. At this stage, you can't add any talents because you have to actually do that level up. You will be, though, about to get some DPs when you level up. So if you go to configure settings, you can, if you wish, allow a setting to allow you to bank DPs, optional setting. Just use the slider for every many you want to allow the players to bank from one level to the next. Okay, so let's go ahead. Let's add 10,000 XP so we can level up. And then we'll just click the level up button. That'll take us to the next screen. Okay, so we've now leveled up, so we can, if we want, use talents. Talents will be capped by the power level. You can change that in the game settings if you want, so the actual talent power level can be independently configured. And if you start adding floors, then your amount of DPs will change. You'll actually get more DPs to be able to be spent. But at the moment, your power levels will cap your maximum tier of your talents. Right, just before we go, let's just show you what we set up earlier. So this is us just leveling up. But look, here we go. Here's our base spells for Eldritch Warrior. And we've got Eldritch Blades here. Eldritch Body and Fire. We can just click on OK to add that. Then add some ranks as per usual. And then we can add in the rest of the other two base spells. And then we'll just go through the rest of the skills and level up, as you're probably aware of how to do. And so we have leveled up. Let's finish that. And then we'll confirm to level 1. And here is our character. All nicely done. And look, there's the spells. There's our bespoke one we did with all our spells in there, and the two we added as the base. One last thing is Bob suggested that we look at where is it in actors? Yeah, under character history, you can have previous generations of the characters you made, which he says is a very handy source for NPCs. Right, well, thank you very much for sticking with it for this long. I hope you got some tips. And thanks very much for watching. Take care. Bye-bye.